Pranams to all the blessed beings. Welcome back to the discourse on Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Today we will be discussing about the second sutra in the first chapter, that is Samadhi Pada. Yesterday we saw that we learned in detail about what is the first sutra and the meaning of the word Ataha when Patanjali said Ataha Yoganu Shasanam. Now, having started learning yoga, the second sutra that he introduced was Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. This, in essence, is the definition of yoga according to Patanjali. Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha has three words in it. There is yoga, then there is Chitta Vritti, and there is Nirodha. Now, Chitta Vritti again has Chitta and Vritti as its components. We will try and see what this shloka means to us. Nirodha means cessation or ablation. Chitta Vritti or Vrittis of Chitta means what? Chitta, to begin with, we will understand it as mind complex or sum total of all the activities of the mind, and vritti is fluctuations in the activities of this mind. So what Patanjali says is yoga is cessation of all the fluctuations of the activities of the mind. Now we will be learning in detail about what are the vrittis or different kinds of activities of the mind in the fifth shloka of the first chapter. So we will concentrate on understanding what the word chitta or mind complex means. We all know that we have a mind and it has several functions to perform. Now the first thing that we need to understand is that the mind has a physical component or bhautika anga, and it also has a functional component or karya rupa anga. Now where is the physical component of mind located in the body? You will be surprised to know that much against the understanding that we generally have that mind is situated in the brain, mind in fact is situated in every cell of the human body. So having situated everywhere in the body, it is the brain which coordinates the functions of the mind which are situated all across the body. For the mind to function, all it requires is infusion of prana. The way we need to have infusion of electrical power for any gadget to function. Now what does this mind do? This mind is a huge and complex processor of information. Having understood that it is a process of information and that it needs energy, the energy that is supplied for the mind to function is called as prana. Prana in yogic science means life force or bioenergy. It has 5 different swarupa or different aspects in its functioning inside the human body, and it has 5 subcomponents also. They are called as the 5 pranas and the 5 upapranas. Now prana and upaprana and the details shall be covered in some other topic separately. Just for our understanding of the mind complex of chitta, we will know that there are 5 different swarupas or manifestations of prana in the way it organizes and manages the functions of the body. Now having infused the necessary power, the mind starts working. How does it work? Now the functional components of the mind has 3 basic components. The first is what is called as the cognitive function of the mind. The second is the affective function of the mind, and the third is the conative function of the mind. So we now know that this mind has 3 components. What is cognitive function of the mind? The process of learning is called as cognitive function of the mind. Now, having become conscious and functional because of the prana, now the mind wants to learn about the world around. What does it have to do if it has to learn? First, it has to identify an object which it has to learn. So it wants to learn about a particular object, and the mind sets its target. Once it sets its target, that becomes the mind's asmita or ahankara. In yogic vocabulary, asmita or ahankara is any object external to our body or within our body that the mind identifies to learn about that particular object. So we have prana infusing the energy required for the functioning of the mind. Then we have ahankara or the mind identifying a particular object. Then it starts learning from the object using its sense organs. So we have 5 sense organs in the body. We see the object, we feel the object, we smell the object, we can hear the object, or we can taste the object. So these 5 sense organs help us learn about the object. So we have input into the mind coming from the sense organs about the object. Having had the input come inside, there is a processing that goes on. This processing happens at 2 levels, at a subconscious level and at a conscious level. Whenever it happens at the conscious level, it generates what is called as thought process or thinking. The mind starts thinking about it. What does it think about? It starts thinking about the experience and starts analyzing it. Now, to analyze it or think about it, it uses 2 things. One, it uses its memory bank. What it does is experiences the sensations that are coming inside, goes to the memory bank and sees whether it has something similar that it has experienced in the past. If it has not, then it imagines. In imagination, it uses logic. It tries to see if this object is 4-legged, which are the 4-legged creatures that I know of, and so on and so forth. So it uses memory and it uses imagination to come to some conclusion about what this experience is. Having had this experience, what it does is it will create an emotion or a feeling. So the second functional component of the mind is its affective function. AFFECTIV, not EFFECTIV. It is affective function. The affective function is the feeling or emotion it generates. You please understand that every experience that a human being goes through has emotion or a feeling associated with it. It ranges from a bad experience or a painful experience to ecstasy or a great experience, with wide range of experiences between these 2 ends. So every experience has an emotional component attached to it, and the memory that is fed into about this experience also has the component of this feeling or emotion always attached to it. So much so that the next time it experiences something very similar or has the same experience, it will pick it up from that component of the memory. That is, it has stored the good experiences, it will pick it up from there. If it has had bad experiences, it will pick it up from there. Now, it has learned, it has generated a thought, and it has added experience in the form of associating the memory or a new experience with a feeling. Now comes the third functional component of the mind, that is the conative function of the mind. So what is conation? Conation is the generation of response. It can also go to describe the building up of will of the person to respond. Now conation again happens at the subconscious level without coming to the conscious experience of the person, or it happens at a conscious level where deliberately the mind analyzes and thinks about the response and executes the response. The subconscious response, for example, is like this. Whenever our hand touches something hot, we may not have eye contact with that object, but the moment we feel something hot, immediately the hand is withdrawn. So it doesn't really go through the process of conscious thinking and withdrawing. Within split seconds, it withdraws itself. So that is the subconscious response that one has. Then there is a conscious response, wherein the conscious response depends on three things. One is what is called as our instincts. These instincts are the ones with which we are born with. These instincts are present in us to protect, for survival of the human beings. Then we have passion added to it. Whenever we need to respond, either we instinctively respond or we have passion affecting our response. And the third thing that is important is our analysis or conscious thinking. So how does this affect? I have got habituated to eating sweets and I get attracted to sweets. Whenever sweets are kept, if I am working only at the instinctive level, then I will just pick it up and eat, irrespective of whether that sweet belongs to me or not, whether it is offered to me or not. This is an instinctive response. What is the conscious response? The conscious response is, it says, though you are interested in eating that, that doesn't belong to you, so you don't have to touch it. So this becomes a conscious response. So the mind as such starts working in three functional components. One is cognitive or learning, one is affective or emotions or feelings, and then there is conative or the response. Now the response happens through the 5 organs of action, what are called as 5 karmendriyas. What are these? We have the mouth and speech, then we have the hands, we have the legs, we have the excretory organs which throughout urine and feces, and then we have the reproductive organs. So chitta or mind complex consists of these 17 components. Which are these components? The 5 pranas, we have the ahankara or what we identify with as an object to learn, we have manas. Manas is called the managing component which manages the jnanendriyas, karmendriyas and the utility of prana for all these functions or processing of the mind. And then we have the 5 jnanendriyas and then we have the 5 karmendriyas. So 17 components are there in this mind complex called chitta. What Patanjali is speaking about is that this complex processing unit called mind or mind complex called chitta keeps having different thoughts. How many thoughts do you think crosses our mind during a particular day? In a day, nearly 70,000 thoughts cross our mind. That is mind-blogging. The quantity of processing that happens in the mind is huge. So unless we sort of regulate this or control this, something better cannot come out of this mind. Now, how is our mind different from those of the animal's mind? You please understand, considering the level of functioning of the mind, we have 3 levels of consciousness. There's something called as subconscious level mind or the animate level mind, wherein the mind understands and reacts like an animal based only on its instincts or survival trends or its samskaras or the root tendencies that we have developed in the past lives or this life. Then there is a conscious mind. The conscious mind uses its intelligence and logic and reasoning to function. That is the level at which most human beings are. And then there is a intuitive mind or a superconscious mind. What is intuitiveness? You see, whenever human mind wants to learn about something, it uses intelligence and reasoning along with its experience through the sense organs. Now, intuitive mind goes beyond this. it doesn't use the human body, human intelligence, human sense organs, reasoning or logic. It is direct perception of knowledge. So any knowledge which can be obtained by the human being without the use of intelligence, reasoning is called as intuitive knowledge. In yogic terms, this is called as Niratishaya Jnana. So there is something called as Satishaya Jnana, which conscious mind obtains through use of intelligence and reasoning, and Niratishaya Jnana, where the human being's conscious level has reached such that it doesn't require any kind of usage of intelligence or reasoning. The moment a person comes in front of you, you will be able to understand everything about him without even knowing that person. This is intuitive knowledge. Now the whole process of yoga is controlling the and abolishing the instinctive level of consciousness with the use of intelligence, using our conscious mind and moving towards the superconscious level. So this is Chitta. Having understood what Chitta is, what Patanjali says is Yoga Sthiti is obtained by completely abolishing the fluctuations of the mind or Chitta. With this, we will stop at the second shloka. Tomorrow, we will understand what is the effect of this Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Pranams to all of you.